you don't find too many people that are wired to do everything well. You usually find like you have certain things that you're driven to do and wired for that I'm not. But putting us together, we could be pretty dangerous doing something, because if we know our own skill sets and you've got that and I've got this, it could really make a big difference.
Kevin Lingg in the building, buddy. I am so excited to have you on board. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, Coach Woody. How you doing, man?
Freaking phenomenal. Better now that I have you on board. But let's just jump right into it, shall we? Like, you had a good stint, right, of time in corporate. How many years?
About 23, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
23-ish. That's
Yeah.
very specific-ish. 23, exactly. And you went from you were working with GE a little bit. Some people might have heard of that company and a few others. You started just learning and growing, got yourself to, I remember part of your story being a $6 million P&L, started running a branch of the business, and then grew to 100 million P&L within some years, and a lot of probably struggles and turmoil. I'm guessing the dash between those 2 years was probably filled with all sorts of learning opportunities. And then went out on your own a little bit. Did a VC endeavor, right? That you helped grow from, what was it?
8 to 16.
$8 to $16 million, which phenomenal growth in that regard. Started your own business. My son refers to you as the cookie man, so I know we're going to dive into that just a little bit. But so many wonderful things that you've done throughout your career, and I think you're just getting started. I don't know about you. You may think otherwise, but I think you're only just on the upward trend. So I want to jump right in with one of my first questions, which is, what do you think is deep down in you that gives you that drive to want to continue to learn or to grow or to take these things on, when you could, admittedly, where you're at in life, just kind of, sit back, relax, and enjoy the fruits of your labor?
I think I've always wanted to know what's next. Like, I think it's more about learning, and that's what's fun to me is I get more curious every step I take, and I do this, and now that opened up some aha things, like, oh, I didn't know about that, and I learned from that, and then that just brought up a couple other options to go play a new path. And even when I was all throughout my corporate career, I would say I started in the automotive industry. I went to the wire and cable industry. Then that led to the company that eventually was purchased by General Electric. And just to be clear, the $6 million P&L was a separate aftermarket business that that eventually led to me getting a role taking over a facility that was a $100 million facility. So I just want to be clear.
Nice.
I didn't grow the business from 6 to 100. I ran a 6 and then I ran 100.
You were running both of them, right? So that means something. Yeah.
What I was going to say, with each of those roles, it seemed like every 18 to 24 months was kind of like, okay, I kind of got my hands around this and I want what's next. And I always I think what's important for people that might be asking, how do you get the next role every 18 to 24 months? One, you have to be in sort of a company that has the ability for that. Not everybody has another role always available or ready for the next thing, but it's also letting people know that that's what you want. And I think some people don't speak up enough about it. So I'm always saying, like I learned something and I'm like, okay, what's next? What can I do next? I want to learn more about finance, or I want to learn more about operations, or what's lean manufacturing. And so when you show that curiosity and the ambition with it, other strong leaders are looking for people like that, because it makes their life easier to find someone that's going to go all in on their next role and learn and really do a great job. And I think that's just something I've always wanted to do. A friend of mine, Brendan, always says whatever Kevin does, he does with excellence. And I don't know if that's just my mindset towards things. Whatever I'm going to do it really well. And I think that's what's led to a new role, a new opportunity more often than some. And
That's awesome. Yeah, I always say my clients are servant-hearted, growth-minded high achievers, right? My clients are, my friends are, everybody in my life really is, and I gravitate to them. And that growth-minded piece is huge. When you came and talked to my class at the university, you talked a lot about how you just kept learning and growing and volunteering and asking questions. And I had breakfast this morning with a previous guest, Bob Falk from PEFQ, Purdue Federal Credit Union. He's the CEO, soon to retire. And he even was talking about when he came and visited, he's like, one time I raised my hand for a project that was extra work. It was after hours. I didn't get paid. And I learned so much that it gave me the opportunity to have a seat in the next one and the next one. Then I was leading one. And then before you knew it, then he's the CEO, right?
Yeah.
And that piece, William Yates said it so well. He said, education isn't the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. Right. We a lot of younger people, especially, they get this idea, I'm going to get that piece of paper and then the world is going to open up to me. No, you got to open yourself up to the world, and then you're going to be learning so much more in the process and then opportunities are abound. So you are awesome in a lot of ways. And obviously your business savviness is not the only one. Obviously you're a fractional COO now, so you work in that space and help other organizations optimize their systems. But you're not unfit either. I think that's another piece that I really admire and appreciate about you and most high achievers, is that they're able to take care of their business and their body. So tell us a little bit about some of the achievements in that space. What are some things that you've been able to do to help you stay fit over the years?
I think the thing that I've been learning more and more as I get older now is sleep matters a lot. And I've never been one of those people that had a badge of honor for a 3 hour night of sleep and I can still go, kick butt in the day. I've never been like that. I felt like, getting, 5-6 hours was always fine. But I think now I try to prioritize at least 7-ish hours a day and a night. And it's better for me. And I think studies from, different podcasts I learned from show that we really do need that 7 or 8. And some people need a little bit more, some maybe a little bit less, but I don't think there's too many studies that show a 4 hour night of sleep is a good thing for the human. So one is good sleep. I think two, I've always been, I've never been like the best at any of the sports I've ever tried to do, but I've always enjoyed just trying to stay fit, and I've kept myself around other people that do the same. So we push each other. Accountability, I think, having not really an accountability partner, but I still feel the accountability because I'm going to show up with my neighbor and we're going to lift weights twice a week, and I know he's waiting on me. So it just drives me to make sure I get up and be there on time and we work out together. We also happen to do triathlons together, and I didn't do that before I met him. We just lifted weights, and then he was into running. So he's like, hey, come do the mini marathon with me. And I started doing mini marathons, and now I don't miss a year. I missed 1 year because my daughter graduated from IU. But in the 20 some years I've been doing it, I show up every year and do it. It's not that I need that run to be a goal. I just actually have learned to really enjoy running, listen to podcasts so I can learn something too. I'm doing a couple of triathlons a year with my friends. So that's just, when you do it with other people that are kind of there as an accountability, and then you see the results just can compound. I think, as we know, when we get older, I'm in my late 40s now, 48. I just know from what I've heard that if you let this muscle mass go away, it's going to really be a bad thing later in life. In your late 50s, 60s, 70s, you're going to wish you would have just kept it up so that you can stay in good shape the rest of your life. I just happen to like staying in shape. I know you do too. So being around others is a real good motivator for me. So I usually lift twice a week. I don't lift to get bigger. I lift pretty much the same amount of weights, different exercises just to hit the different parts of the body. But I'm not trying to get bigger. I just want to maintain. I don't want to lose. So I'm lifting like that. I'm running twice a week. I play pickleball at least twice a week, and try to fit in the biking on some Sundays when it's nice weather out. So I'd say 5 to 7 days a week I'm doing something, and I enjoy it. So I think I'm lucky that I have that in me, that I enjoy it and I see the benefits of it.
Yeah.
So sleep, exercise, and if you had to say one that I'm working on, that I don't feel like I'm doing so well on physical side or the health side, it's probably food choices. Not real good with that. I think I'm above average, but there's people that are just really good with staying away from processed foods or ultra processed foods, and I'm not so good at that. And I love sugar, so that's my vice. Give me some dessert.
There is a reason you started a cookie company, right? But you touched on a couple different things that I really think are important there. One is this idea of surrounding yourself with people to hold you accountable. And I loved your point of like, not necessarily physically, they're not like, hey, show up. But I started doing some jujitsu with some friends and I play pickleball as well. And part of me, when I'm out on a run or I'm lifting, part of the nagging thing in the back of my mind is, hey, you need to keep up with your friends. When you're rolling, you want to give them like a challenge. You want to be able to stay up with them, not necessarily to compete, but so that when I'm working with them, I am a worthy rival in that regard, right? You've talked about this a little bit. Like you play up in your pickleball game and you know that, but you're always trying to improve because you want to give those other guys a good run for their money, if it were. And so I think that touches back to the quote that you shared in my class. And I always butcher quotes, but that idea of you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. And I think that that's a huge piece of this. Another piece that you shared is this idea that I talk a lot with my clients. I call it Pareto optimization of your well-being, but this idea of stacking all these different things so that they benefit multiple aspects of our wellness. So the social piece with the mental piece, so like you're learning while you're running or you're running with your friends and connecting more meaningfully, and all of these things just happening at the same time can maximize your benefit while minimizing your investment in those things.
And because of that, I think it just keeps fueling your want, your energy towards more of those things. Like I get some, I want more of it. Like I feel good when I know I've got my health moving in the right direction physically and mentally, when I know that networking is growing my network, meeting new people, hearing new stories. Maybe I'm growing the business a little bit in the right ways, not necessarily always top line, but maybe margins, maybe other things are going well, I'm getting my processes documented. So you start to feel good about each of these areas of wellness, like that you talk about. They just, like you said, stacking, I think each one of those you get in place and you do better at, it just drives even more of it and more of it. And then it just gets this snowball compounding effect, and it just makes you feel like you really got things moving in the right way for yourself. At
Yeah.
least I do. I do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We've talked about this before. My model for well-being that I developed as part of my coaching strategy, focus, practice is in the center of it's directional well-being. And I think a lot of the high achievers that I work with and yourself and a lot of us, we don't want to say no because for one, it might appear as though we're being lazy. Like we're saying no, we're turning away from an opportunity and we don't want to miss that opportunity. So there's this fear of FOMO, FOMO aspect of it. Fear of missing out. There's this piece of like, I don't want to seem lazy. This could be the next opportunity, whatever it happens to be. But I also think it's this piece of, I don't know what to say no to. I don't know intentionally what I'm trying to do with my life. And so this is work or work related, and I work because that's who I am. So I'm just going to say yes to it, even though I don't have the capacity for it. I haven't done a time audit to determine what do I actually have the capacity to do. So I just add it to my plate and I forget that something else is going to have to fall apart in order for that to happen, whether it's my physical health, which is usually a go-to for people, or my social health, my relationships with my family or my kids or whatever, all for this sake of, well, I work, I provide, I'm the provider, so I have to do more and more, because we just don't have this idea of like, what are we trying to do with our lives? What's our purpose and what are the values that we use to live that purpose? And so therefore, we don't know how to say no because we don't know why we would say no. And so for high achievers, it's easier to say yes. And so we just do.
I think it depends on what stage you're in life too. So I, if you want to talk age wise, the younger you are, the more you still need to experience and learn what does get you energized, and you need to get some experience so that later, I think later, maybe for just my experience, trying things, seeing like, okay, I looked into that. I went to several meetings. There was one business, like the salon suites business, where it was a group of people. I only knew like a couple of them. There was 3 or 4 others. They were new to me. So it's good to meet new people and see what their vision would be for this potential business. And we sat down, we did a business model canvas so I could wrap my head around like, what does a business model look like that you're thinking of doing? How would we do it? I ask a lot of questions because I'm a curious person. Plus, I want to make sure this is something I seriously want to invest my time in.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know that I think that way 15 years ago. So I'm just saying, I think as we learn and grow and know ourselves more, I will still jump in. I might say yes for the first 3, 4, 5 meetings until I really understand if this gets me to that hell yes or doesn't. It might not be right away. And I got to meet 3 or 4 really cool people that grew my network. And I got to learn some things about that industry that I didn't know. But eventually I just knew that this wasn't something I wanted to take further. So then I backed out. And that's how I taste test and try things. So I might show some interest and just really try to dig in and find more. And then I back out before it gets too deep. And I just say, no, this isn't for me.
Yeah, yeah. But what I love about you is you know that that's your style, right? You are very much a data collector. I am not, right? And so it's also important to recognize what are you interested. You knew you're interested in getting into some new ventures, and so you knew these people enough to know I'm going to try it. But you also knew how much to go into it, right? I will say yes to this, but not to the entirety of it, right? You didn't dive in head first. You knew enough about yourself to be able to decide what to say yes to versus no to. And I tell my students all the time, the number one thing you can study in college, the course you can take that is more important than any other course is U 101, right? Like learning more about yourself so that you understand what to say yes to and no to. And I couldn't agree more. Sampling life, especially at that younger age, is going to allow you to understand what hurts, so you say no to it more versus what do you really enjoy and what you want to lean into.
Yeah, I think we both know. I assume many of your listeners know that's such a critical point to learn about you because we are all wired in a different way. And you don't find too many people that are wired to do everything well. You usually find like you have certain things that you're driven to do and wired for that I'm not. But putting us together, we could be pretty dangerous doing something because if we know our own skill sets and you've got that and I've got this, it could really make a big difference. And for anybody that's listening that wants to know about those assessments, how do I learn more about me? I mean, part of it's introspection and just being like, how did I respond to that situation? How did I do there? Why did I say that? But without going there, there are so many assessments out there that are good assessments that can tell you, like, once you see the results of those, you start thinking deeper about it and be like, yeah, I do seem to be wired that way. There are many. I would say probably one of my favorites is DISC.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I'm like a high C, high S. So I know I'm a reserved person. I'm not assertive like yourself, not naturally. I'm naturally reserved. I'm naturally like systems, processes, data. I'm research. I am good with people and I'll listen to their stories and take the time.
Yeah.
Other people are wired like drivers. I mean, they're just like, they're driven to just go get stuff done in a way that sometimes they don't take the time to get to know someone as deep or yeah, there's just different ways, but that doesn't mean we're not all needed. We need all of these people. I just know where I'm best, where I'm unique, and where I'm going to be best for that situation. So DISC is one. I know there's Enneagram, and there are the Myers Briggs is another good one. I
Mm-hmm.
really like Colby as well. Colby is another one that taught me that I'm a high fact finder, which I agree with,
Yeah.
and that I'm not a quick start, which you probably are more of a quick start. You probably would take action on something quicker than I would because I need more information before I do something that I want to get into. It's just
We,
natural to me.
Yep, we make a good team. 16personalities.com is another one. It's Myers Briggs, but it gives you like a character. So depending on the day, I'm either a commander or a protagonist, which, makes sense. So I love that. And I think too, you're speaking to this idea of like, we all have strengths and we all have, the opposite of that side of that coin is the weaknesses that we have or areas of improvement, I'd like to call them. And sometimes don't, we spend a lot of time telling people, hey, you have all A's and one C, you need to put all of your energy into the C, right? Like forget everything else. It just is like, no, find the A that you love the most and just go all in on that too. That's an option that probably is going to benefit you more later in life. But I'd love to hear from you as a high achiever. You think about all those different dimensions of our well-being, the physical, our spiritual, directional, spatial, all of that. Where do you think you have the most room to improve?
Yeah, I think like I mentioned earlier, I feel like I'm pretty good on many of those areas, but I think the thing that I could true up the most is going to be eating better
Mm,
for energy and for everything in my life. And I think it's so important when you think about what you put in your body and what it can do for your body. I exercise a lot, but I also know you can't out exercise a bad diet. And it's real easy to think, well, I just had that dessert, so I'll just make sure I run 4 miles tomorrow. It doesn't work that way for everyone. It
sure.
might work well for some people with great metabolisms or whatever. It doesn't mean that you might look good on the outside and not on the inside too, right?
Yeah.
You could have some things going on because of your diet choices that you actually look physically fit, but inside it's not the same story. So I think I'm just now trying to learn more and more about the right things to eat and just put those into my daily diet better. I'm not going to go cold turkey. I think I love my sugar. I'm still going to eat my sugar, but I need to say I'm not just going to eat like two bad meals in a day, like cheeseburgers and pizza. I need to have a real healthy whole food like lunch with salad or fruit or something. But then it's okay to have something not so good for me maybe the next meal. And then if I can continue like atomic habits where I start thinking I'm going to start making that more often, it's just a slow lifestyle change that I know I'm going to want. My future self is going to want me to make these decisions right now. So I need to be thinking how to improve that diet. Other than that, I think financially, I feel really good about where we are and how we've managed our finances in life. It's given me a lot of opportunities to start this cookie business and really see how far I wanted to go and so forth without the pressure of all the things I need to pay for in life. Just because I think we've done well in the first 20 25 years of our careers to put ourselves in this position now. So financially good. I think mentally, being around people like yourselves, learning from podcasts and books and other entrepreneurs just keeps me like sharp and on my toes. And I love this sort of world learning about entrepreneurship even more. What else? I mean, socially, I feel like I've become a better networker. I keep becoming a better networker. I love connecting people.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not the guy in the room that's going to go up to a bunch of strangers and say, "Hey, I'm Kevin. Nice to meet you." But if Lucas, comes over, he's all by himself or I'm by myself, we could sit down and easily have a long conversation, get to know each other. I think I work better that way than I do in big groups of people I don't understand. And then I love to
Yeah.
connect people that I think can help each other. It's just really fulfilling. So socially, I think that's been getting better and better as I've put myself out there.
Yeah, I think too. We have to own the fact that extroverts are typically the most lonely people in the world. Just because we look happy and connected on the outside doesn't mean that that's the case on the inside. Introverts, by and large, and again, we're painting broad strokes, right? Everybody's unique, but on average, introverts make much more deep, meaningful connections, and so you can't judge a book by that cover, right? That there's no way to look at somebody and go, oh, they're an extrovert, they must have a lot of friendly connections. And that's not what we talk about in social well-being. When I'm working with my clients, we're talking about the depth of our relationships a lot more than the breadth of our relationship. So it's like, do we have our spouse, but also do we have somebody else that we can confide in? Because your spouse shouldn't also be your best friend, shouldn't also be your coworker, shouldn't also be, your all of these things. That's too many hats for one person to wear. It's just not fair. So you should have a couple at least deep meaningful relationships to be able to lean on. So yeah, being introvert extrovert, none of that is as important as just how many deep meaningful relationships can you have. And it's not the number as much as it is the depth.
Yeah. And just real quickly, it's funny,
Yeah.
the if I'd say I have a best friend, my neighbor Tom, who's gotten me into the running and the biking and all the stuff that we do. He's 15 years older than me, but a best friend for sure. Like the funny thing is me being an introvert. It was my first week on the job at the wire and cable company. I was traveling to St. Louis. It was for a conference for our group. I was an environmental health and safety manager at the time. So it's all the environmental health and safety managers getting together in person in St. Louis at the corporate location. But we were having a dinner and we were all going to meet at the dinner. Well, finance people were having their own thing too. And Tom's a finance guy. So everybody was meeting at this like restaurant at the hotel bar just for like hors d'oeuvres before we kind of broke out into rooms. So I go down there. I know no one. It's my first week in a company where I know nobody except for the person that hired me. Hadn't seen him yet. Went downstairs before he was there. So of course I do what I do. I'm the wallflower guy. I go over to like where the hors d'oeuvres are or whatever, and I just stand over there and grab a beer by myself while everybody else is talking. Tom comes over, don't know him, and he just says, "Hey, I'm Tom." And then now we're about 20 years into this relationship that is amazing. I live next door to him now, and it's unbelievable how some of these things work. But deep relationships, that's how I work on them. And I agree with you. I think that that's something that outside of your spouse, having three, four, five. It's hard to have that many sometimes too, but if you can get three or four besides like your spouse and your kids, I think you're doing really well to have some really good, deep friends, deep relationships like that. And it's important
Yeah.
for longevity, for, when you look at the blue zones in the world where people tend to live to 100 years or more, it's, what is it? Not only is it diet, but it's activity, it's community, it's having friends, it's not being isolated.
Yeah. Yeah. And because we're starting to run short on time, I'll leave it with this one thing, which is, people are like, it's so hard to make friends these days. And I'll tell you, the number one way to make good friends is to be a good friend. If you're a good friend to other people, I promise you, you'll make good friends. So don't worry so much about when is somebody coming to come up and be a good friend to me. Instead, just be a good friend and you'll attract great people into your life. So, hey, let's finish up with the way that I always like to finish up these, which is the thinkers and the doers, right? So the habit that you think for the doers, the habit that you love to lean into that really helps you feel like it leans. There's a lot of habits that make you who you are, but if you could maybe share one that you really appreciate about yourself. And then obviously you're a researcher, you're a thinker. So I'd love to hear a resource, a book, a podcast that you're really into right now.
Okay. Yeah, I think one of the things, as I was thinking, for those that know what EOS is, as I was thinking about becoming an EOS implementer, I'm wired with systems and processes and so forth. So, Gino Wickman that wrote the book Traction, which is a great book for any small, medium-sized business owner that's looking to like really get a structure into their company
Yep.
and help it grow. That book is amazing. There
Yep.
are many, many like it. I think that's a great, simple one. But he also wrote a book called The EOS Life. And I think the biggest thing I took from that was that the night before, my prep the night before is what's on my calendar for tomorrow. I'm thinking about like, is everything lined up? Am I ready to go? I'm preparing the night before for the next day. I think that has helped me so much, just mentally go sleep better, knowing that I've got my day planned out. I know what's on my calendar. Life is still going to smack you in the face sometimes, and you're going to have to adapt, whether you're good or not at doing that. I think I'm pretty good at it, but being adaptive is important too. But having a plan, as Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. So that's going to happen, but I still plan anyway. And I think the night before, making sure I've got everything in a row, a good plan is what's helped me. It's a good habit that I have that's helped me a lot. So that's the main one.
I love it.
I think, thinking wise, yeah, there are so many things I love to dive into for learning. I probably have 15 different podcasts that I follow for different areas of life, whether it's for my cookie business and understanding taxes and things like that. And am I doing all those things right? Or investing and financial independence. I used to listen to, I'm thinking about your audience, and it could be they all might be in different places, right? So it's really hard to pick one. I think right now I'm really into, from a financial independence perspective, my favorite podcast is called Choose FI. If people are interested in financial independence, Choose FI is my favorite podcast. From a book perspective, really tough. I love so many books, but I think what helped me a lot when I was in all of my roles as an operations leader, whether it was with GE or Market Wagon after that, I'm always looking for how to be a better leader, how to be a better manager. I'm always trying to figure out how to be best for my team. And one of the great books I really read on that was The Hard Thing About Hard Things. Really great book. that I enjoy. So if people are interested in that, not just leadership and management lessons, but this is like a VC firm and so forth that's purchased companies and how to grow them. And there's a lot of hard times they go through and how they solve those problems and work through them. And I think me and my friend Brennan were talking today at lunch about critical thinking and how it's so easy these days to not have to think critically anymore because everything is at your fingertips almost. And you can get answers without having to think through them. And I was just wondering, I'm like, I wonder if you could have an app. Could you create an app that actually you want to use that makes you think critically? Like, I want to know the answer to something and it forces me like you would to ask another question. Like, well, what would you do? What about this? And instead of just saying, here's the answer, because that's so easy, but I didn't have to think. And I think we're losing some of that. But everybody that wants to be lazy and not learn is just not going to use the app. So it's only for those that would want to. So,
yeah, honestly, it's the bar is getting lower and lower in terms of what you have to do to stand out, right? Because a lot of people are just leaning into the easy, and for high achievers, we don't, and so therefore it gets easier for us to just step above, right? Like critical thinking and pushing ourselves to think a little bit deeper. So,
yeah,
I love
the
it.
next challenge, the next challenge, the next challenge.
Yeah, Kevin Lingg, Lingg. 2 G's. I had to spell it out because people are going to want to find you and they're going to want to be a part of your life. So, what do they need to know about you? Obviously, the cookie business. Shout out to that. But also, just how do they connect? How do they learn more?
Yeah, I think the best way to find out anything about me or connect with me directly is probably on LinkedIn. So, I'm probably the only Kevin Lingg with 2 G's on there. But yeah, I have a cookie business that's been a fun project that started 10 years ago and, kind of stayed under the radar during my corporate life. But as I've come out of that, I've kind of breathed a little more life into it. And it's been fun to go through all the aspects of learning just to slowly and simply grow this small business. So it's been fun. Loaded Dough Cookie Co. is the name of that business. I also love to use my operational background and operational skills. So as a fractional COO, or for those that are running on EOS and using EOS, they call them a fractional integrator. I love to do that sort of fractional work as well. So those are the two main things that I love doing, besides continuing to learn to be better with my financial independence life. So.
Kevin, brother, I really appreciate you. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing a little bit about your success to hopefully help other high achievers realize that they have room to grow and there's ways to do it.
Yeah, I'd love to help anybody that wants to reach out.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, Coach Woody.